Hello from Phuket in southern Thailand. My name's Nick and I'm a British expat. I've been here almost 30 years. I'm married to a Thai and we have 5 kids, and it's been quite an eventful journey. And although this channel is called Phuket Word and it was originally established several years ago to cover news events and things like that in Phuket, I haven't really done much of that. And I know a lot of people are thinking about moving from the UK, coming to a place like Thailand, maybe working and living or retiring here. And so I thought I'd share some of my experiences to give you an idea of what it can be like and some of the hoops you have to jump through, the hurdles you have to jump over, and the kind of culture shock you might experience. And then you can do your own research and find out more at your leisure. So when I first came here back in the mid or late 1990s, I think, there was no such thing as the internet. All I'd found out about Thailand was from listening to stories from friends that had spent a few months here just on the party islands, and doing some research in books about basically how to live and work abroad. So what I did before coming here was get a TEFL certificate, TEFL, which means Teaching English as a Foreign Language. And that was a short course that lasted about a month. It was quite intense though, that I did in Paris actually, at a language school there, knowing that teaching English was a job that you could quite easily get in Thailand, like you can in places like Japan or Taiwan and other countries where English isn't really a second language, so there's a lot of demand for native English speakers to teach English. So there are several options available to someone if they want to come and teach, and they vary in the qualifications you need and the kind of requirements to be able to work here. So first of all, you can't just come and do any job here, whether it's hospitality or tourism, or any kind of work that a local could do. Then as a foreigner you are unlikely to get employed in that kind of work. So even if you have some kind of specialist skill, that doesn't necessarily mean that you'll be able to get work here if a Thai can do it. And if you are coming over with a multinational company, then that's probably fine. But as a teacher, it's quite a grey area because there are several different kinds of teaching positions, but they're not always so clear cut. So there are language schools, there are many of them in Bangkok, where people that have a good command of English and some kind of teaching experience, or at least the ability to command a class, can get work. And then there are government schools or state-run schools where the students have very, very limited English. And then you have bilingual schools. There are many more of those. So they are they are private schools, but they are cheaper than international schools, which are prohibitively expensive. And so if you have good teaching qualifications, if you have a degree, for example, and a PGCE, postgraduate certificate in education, then that would be a really good start to get you into a bilingual school at least. For the international schools, they often prefer you to have a master's degree. These are because of the rules stipulated by the Ministry of Education. But if you were in a government school, ironically, you wouldn't really be directly employed by the government itself. They rarely employ foreigners in any kind of position. It would be through an agency, and in that respect it would be very similar to working at a language centre. The problem there, though, is that these agencies and language centres don't have the capital or the number of people. They're not sizable enough organisations to be able to provide work permits for foreign nationals. So the basic rule is that if you're a company or a business that wants to employ a foreign national, first of all, it has to be a job that a Thai can't do. Tourism and things like that are out of bounds, really. They're only reserved for locals, native Thais. So if you are into tourism, that's not really going to be an option for you. But with the language centres and the agencies for teaching, they would have to have a minimum of 5 people in the company for every 1 foreigner that they employ. And different nationalities have different minimum salaries that they must be given. If you're a Brit, the last I knew was that it was around 50,000 baht per month. I don't know the conversion rate right now, but you can look that up and see what kind of equivalent that is. But that's not a bad salary. That's quite sufficient to live on here and enjoy a certain amount of luxury. Of course, you've got great weather, and the people are great, the food's cheap, and it's very nice, and there's so much variety that in that respect, if you have the qualifications and you have a company that has the capital and is sizable enough to offer you a work permit, then that would be okay. You could come here and kind of experience it in a way that's relatively stress-free, as far as all those hoops that you've got to jump through and the hurdles you have to jump over. Personally, I came over and I just came on a tourist visa to start with. I didn't have a job per se to go to. I was just going to wing it and see what happened. But as I said, the language centres just don't have the resources to employ foreigners. So the problem there is that you're not allowed to work. You're prohibited from working if you're on a tourist visa. But it is common for people to come over and start on a tourist visa, which means that after about 60 days, I think, you have to leave the country and then come back in. You might have to stay in the foreign country for a few days, but there are certain places where you can turn around and come back in again almost immediately. So there are various exit and entry points, whether it's down south or up north. So you could go to Laos, or you could go to Vietnam or Cambodia or Burma or Malaysia to do your visa run. Anyone who has been in Thailand for any length of time will know this, will know about all the different visa runs, and they all have different ways of doing them. One of my crazier visa runs is going to Ranong and going across the border, across the water on these long-tail boats to Burma or Myanmar, and it's quite a treacherous journey, and it takes all day, and it's just it's a lot of hassle to do. But basically, if you come here and you are able to apply for a job with a school or something, and then they are able to offer you a work permit, then you would have to go and get a non-immigrant visa. So if you haven't applied for a job from your own country before coming here, then, and you were on a tourist visa here, you would have to leave the country and go to the consulate or the embassy, the Thai embassy or consulate in that other country, and submit the paperwork that basically includes a contract and promises you a job, and various other documents. You have to do health checks and things like that as well. But basically, you would get a 3-month visa initially. That's the most you would get, and then the process continues once you're back in the country and back at work. So really, even if you've got a contract and you've got a promise of work, by law, you have to have that work permit in hand and be able to present it to any kind of immigration official if you're already working or before you can work. So it's something to be very careful about. It is a grey area, and there are certain things that can be accomplished without everything being in place, but much depends on the company itself and how well connected the people in that company are to the officialdom, and how well they understand the system themselves. One stark difference between somewhere like the UK and here is that obviously if you want to find out information about legal requirements for living and working in the UK, it's very easy to do so. Even before the internet, you could go to somewhere and find out, but here in Thailand that kind of information isn't readily available. So even if a company is going to employ you, they will probably employ an agency, or they will have a person on their team that is specifically dedicated to dealing with all the documentation that is required to hire farangs. So as I said, any job that a local can do, then you are not allowed to do that kind of job. There are kind of gaps, I suppose, in things like real estate. If you're coming here with a lot of money to invest and maybe do so with property or things like that, then you can do that. But at the same time, as a foreigner, you can never actually own land, and you can never actually own property. You can own a car or a vehicle or a motorbike or something like that. You can have it in your name, and you can own a phone, and you can open up bank accounts, and digital banking is quite normal here now. People use their phones a lot for making payments, so you can do that. Come over here and register a phone number with your passport, and then you can go and get the banking apps, and so that makes life quite convenient. And the tax is not bad, and of course the food is great, and the atmosphere is generally good. But as I said, teaching is good and a good source of income if you're working at a good school. So if you're working at a bilingual school or an international school, then you'll at least get an okay pay packet, enough to live on comfortably, and you should have all those legal requirements taken care of. But if you're working at a language centre, then you're probably going to be doing so illegally, because they won't be able to give you a work permit. But of course it goes on, it happens, and so that's just the kind of thing you have to play by ear. But as I said, you can't be going back and forth on a tourist visa for months or years at a time. It is a very draining job, actually, teaching. It's very demanding. The standards are different, but then of course if you're working in a bilingual or an international school, a lot of the time you might be following the British or the American curriculum, and if you have some experience there and you have a degree and you have a PGCE, or something equivalent, then you should be fine. And you can then do things like buy a car on hire purchase, for example, or a motorbike, and basically, live a fairly normal life in that respect. The only thing is, when it comes to being on the roads, that is the one thing I really dislike about Thailand, because safety is really something that has never improved. I mean, we've just had today, I think, or yesterday, another person in a pickup killed by a concrete slab that fell off an elevated expressway as they were travelling underneath it. So that's the second in just a few weeks on the same stretch of road in Bangkok. It's called Rama 2. This might be something to do with the earthquake that occurred in Myanmar recently, and there were tremors felt in Bangkok, and as you might have heard, one entire building did collapse. That was a building that was under construction, and that really highlighted again the safety issues, because palms were greased, it seems, or inferior materials were used, and this building was I can't remember how many stories, but several stories high. It wasn't complete, but it just completely collapsed, and at least 50 construction workers were killed during that collapse. And the death toll on the roads is one of the highest in the world. I'm not sure exactly where, but I'm sure it ranks among the top 10 most dangerous places in the world for travelling on the road. I've been lucky in all this time. I had a motorbike in Bangkok, or I've had several motorbikes, and after falling off my third time, I then abandoned the idea of using a motorbike to get around. But of course, that was the easiest way, especially if you're living out of town. I was working in town, but living out of town. The problem, of course, with being in Bangkok is very heavily polluted and very congested. And when they were building these expressways and the mass transit systems, it was horrendous. You could spend 3 or 4 hours just trying to get out of the city. Obviously, it's a lot better these days, but as far as safety, a lot of things haven't improved. So that's a real issue. You're safe in terms of walking around. I've never ever felt threatened or in danger from other people. From things like muggings. I've never been mugged or never had anything really stolen from me. And you can often go to a shop, and the shopkeeper just has the money in a drawer, or loose change in a basket on the counter. And for the most part, people are very honest when they go and buy things, and there's not really a problem there. But unlike how it might be in the UK these days, where you've got people riding around on bikes snatching phones from people, you just don't get that here. So as far as that kind of crime goes, there's very little. But then, as I said, people do get into horrific accidents, and a lot of the time tourists die here because they are dealing with treacherous roads, and might be the first time they've been using a motorbike, and it's the first time they've experienced these kinds of roads as well. But I suppose one of the secrets to survival is to just try and drive like the Thais and not get steamed up. If you try and follow the rules that you might be used to in the UK or the US, for example, that might well get you into an accident, because that's not how the rest of them drive out here. So you just go onto the road, and you'll be faced with motorbikes coming at you in the opposite direction, people weaving in and out, truck drivers and taxi drivers and minivan drivers are notorious for being very aggressive behind the wheel. You know, in somewhere, for example, like the UK, where the rules are very strict and enforcement is very strict, and if you're a bus driver, you'd have to do an alcohol check before you can start the engine, or if you're a truck driver, you would have had lots of training about safety and distances, and you would actually drive very defensively, whereas here someone driving a truck, and sometimes they're articulated trucks full of earth or whatever, they have the opposite attitude. They're very aggressive. They think everyone should get out of their way. They'll just steam up behind you. Just this morning I saw a horrific accident where one of these articulated trucks, so what's that, an 18-wheeler, had smashed into a pickup truck, killing 3 people. And you know, I mean, that's just one of hundreds or thousands of examples I could come up with, but there are horrific accidents all the time, and nothing ever seems to get better in that respect. So that's one thing to be aware of, is that if you're going to come here, then of course having a motorbike is maybe all you could really afford, and it is a very convenient way to get around, especially in Bangkok where it's very congested, but it's also going to put you in a great deal of danger. Obviously now it's actually a lot easier to get around Bangkok on the mass transit system, so they've got the elevated trains, and they've got a subway, and they've got the expressways, and the airport is connected, so it's a lot better than it was, although, as I said, this accident where a piece of concrete fell onto a pickup driver, the second in less than a month, is where an elevated expressway is being built. So yeah, that's just one of those things that you have to think about, but as a rule, if you exercise a great deal of caution and accept that everyone else on the road is going to break all the rules that you're familiar with, then you might get away with it. You might be all right. So yeah, obviously when you're working in education, that is another culture shock as well, because first of all, as I said, when I was here all those years ago, English was hardly spoken at all, and you don't hear it on the TV, you don't hear it on the radio. It was just so in that sense, you do get entirely immersed in the culture. Obviously now with the internet, and everyone's connected, and you can get a Wi-Fi connection, or you can use your mobile data very easily, so you can get around with Google Maps and things like that. But in those good old days before the internet, there was maybe one map that you could get hold of, but it wasn't anything like an Ordnance Survey map. And if you showed that to a taxi driver or something like that, it just wouldn't make any sense to them whatsoever. The Thais in general are not great map readers, and a lot of the taxi drivers might even be from up country, so they might not even know Bangkok, and there's even been times when I've got on motorcycle taxis, which is another handy way to get around, but of course a very dangerous way of doing it, where the guy says, I don't know where that is, can you ride a bike? And I'm like, yeah, okay. So I would end up riding the bike with the taxi driver on the back. Which is probably totally illegal anyway, but given that everyone else is breaking the law or the rules on the roads, then it doesn't really matter. So there's a massive lack of enforcement in that respect. And I remember when a friend of mine had a motorbike and he got into an accident at a crossroads or something. Being English, he thought, well, okay, let's get the police over here, and so he did. But then as soon as you get the police involved, then they're going to extract their fee as well. So you're probably better off just not getting the police involved if you have an accident. And obviously if you have something that needs hospital treatment, then you're going to want to have insurance as well. But if you are working and you're paying your tax and your health insurance, then you will be entitled to treatment at the government hospitals. And they are not that bad. The doctors will speak English and they're very knowledgeable, but you will have to deal with crowds of people, so it's very time consuming. I remember going to a hospital, the main hospital in Phuket. It's called Wachira Hospital. I just had a sprained ankle, but my boss at the time said, come on, let's go over there, let's make sure everything's okay. So there I am, sat at the desk with the doctor, checking out my ankle, but then the nurse called him over because there was a guy on the bed over there dying, and so the doctor had to go over and perform CPR on this guy, and then then he came back and sat down to look at my ankle again, and then again 5 minutes later, or even less than that, he had to go back over and do CPR. So it was just a very crazy situation to be in. You're going there for a sprained ankle, but the doctor's dealing with all sorts of much more serious trauma cases, multitasking in that respect. And then private hospital treatment costs you an arm and a leg, literally, and any insurance you have probably wouldn't cover the full cost of that. So that's something to be aware of too. But thankfully, I've not had to deal with that too much. I've, as I said, somehow managed to remain relatively safe, although had a few near misses, and every day on the roads is, every time you go out there, it's you got to have your wits about you. You can't relax. But of course, people will, it's not unusual to see 5 up on a bike, or someone on their phone at the same time, or just riding with one hand very casually, or just doing crazy things without this kind of, because they just don't have the kind of training and enforcement that we are used to, and losing your rag in that kind of situation will probably make things worse. And it's actually a weird thing to get used to, is that the Thais will smile and laugh in situations that are often very dangerous, and where you would maybe want to tut and shake your head, the Thais just kind of laugh these kinds of things off. So for example, a couple of people crossing a busy road in what is a very dangerous situation will kind of laugh and giggle as they go across the road. It's just weird, but that's just the way they are. And of course, it's very nice in many respects when you're greeted with a smile, and people are very conscientious in that respect. They're very welcoming. If one of the questions you might get asked if you meet someone is have you eaten yet? Or if someone's eating and you pass by and say hi, they'll invite you to come and eat, which again is very different to the kind of experience you might have in England, where people are guarding their plate, and would feel kind of a bit nervous if someone else arrived, and because you wouldn't have anything to really offer them. Of course, the way the Thais eat is there's always a bunch of things in the middle. They've got their rice, and then so they're taking spoonfuls of the soup or the curry or whatever it is in the middle. So there's always room for more people to come and join. Just give them some rice and they can start helping themselves. So it's a lot easier in that respect. And in terms of the culture when it comes to education, that of course is very, very different as well. There's a whole thing about face. Preserving face is a very important part of the culture. So you can't be making people lose face. So things like the kind of sarcasm and piss taking that you might be familiar with, if your banter isn't really how the Thais operate. And as I said, the education system is not one that necessarily nurtures individual creativity, and it's more about conformity. I remember when I first got a job in a bilingual school, I was just blown away to see this student on his knees crawling up to the desk, the teacher's desk, and handing over his work, and kind of had to just stand, kind of just there on his knees and be berated by this teacher. And it's not uncommon for the teacher to get the ruler out to give the kids a whack. And when I was teaching in government schools, there would be like 60 kids in the class at once. Of course, if you're in an international school, then the class sizes are a lot less. You might have 10 or maybe a maximum of 20 in the class, but in the government schools they really pack them in, and there's no air conditioning in those places. It gets very, very hot. And of course they've got their own little thing going on, so you're always going to feel a bit like an outsider. For example, if you're working in a school, then of course this whole thing is going on, the whole system is in place, and you're coming along, and you would have to do things like stand outside the school and welcome the kids, because that's of course showing you're on display there. But they want the kids to have fun learning English, so you've got to put on an act, you've got to be a bit of a clown, and that requires a lot of energy. And but then you might be unaware of all the other administrative things or what the teachers are told to do. So you can often find yourself making plans and they get scuppered because the director has decided that something's got to happen, or you're suddenly, all of a sudden you're doing something completely different, and you weren't aware of it because you weren't in those meetings or part of those conversations. So it can be very stressful in that respect. I think it's probably quite different in the international schools. As far as I understand, then you're going to be very much involved in the meetings, and you're going to have people with a very detailed and meticulous approach, whereas in the kind of the more Thai schools, you're going to be dealing with a very different kind of Thai system that isn't going to adapt to you. You would have to adapt to it, and it just becomes kind of quite tiresome after a while. So if you're looking to do maybe a year or two, it would be probably a great experience. But for me, it was kind of it was beneficial at one time to do it, because it allowed my daughter to get a slightly better education in a bilingual school or an international school, but there was so much politics and so much weirdness to deal with that it was great when the internet came along and a new avenue of work came about. So these days I'm doing writing or editing or some kind of work that I'm basically not necessarily employed by locals. I'm working on a freelance basis with other people in other countries, and so that kind of works. But the problem is that Thailand had PayPal at one point, and that was fine, but for some reason that stopped. I think it was because of criminal activity or whatever. It's difficult to know for sure, but there was no specific reason given. But that was a way for me to get money kind of easily or directly, almost directly into my Thai bank account. But these days the only way I can do that is if I get paid via PayPal, then it has to go to PayPal, then my English bank account, and then it comes over to my Thai bank account. So every step of the way, you're losing money, you're paying for the transactions, and you're getting a shitty conversion rate or exchange rate. Yeah, so it can be quite tiresome in that respect. But of course, the cost of living out here is a lot cheaper in many respects than it may be in somewhere like the UK. I suppose because you're not really paying massive taxes, and the food and the accommodation is cheaper. But of course, if you're, it's very easy to spend a huge amount of money, but also with a bit of savvy and street cred, streetwise kind of application, you can get by and live like a local and do okay. Yeah. So I hope that kind of helps give a bit of an insight. It's again very difficult to give specific advice, but if you're thinking of coming to Thailand and living and working here, or just visiting to check it out, then ask me some questions in the comment, or if you'd like me to cover a certain issue, then I would welcome those kinds of comments, and I'd be happy to do a video about it, and hopefully whatever I can do or say will help you make a decision that could be something that sets you on a totally different path to one that you ever imagined. So like anything, there are contrasts, and nothing ever really goes to plan, but every day is an adventure, that's for sure. And after almost 30 years here, it's still quite adventurous, and obviously some things do become tedious, and I hanker for some of those home comforts, but in many ways, as far as food and things like that go, it's a lot easier now. There's a lot of international supermarkets, so it's a whole lot easier to get just those foods from home, which for many years I went without. These days you can get a croissant and bread and all the whatever it is, cereals and milk and things like that, chocolate bars. But for the first decade or more, I didn't have access to any of that kind of stuff. Yeah. So from my garden here in Phuket, I bid you farewell, and I hope this has been helpful for you, and look forward to hearing your comments. Thank you very much.
Click subscribe and the bell icon if you'd like to receive notifications of new videos from Phuket Word.